the ego ideal of anyone really, INFJ and non-INFJ alike, is formed between the ages of 0 and 7. It's one of the manifestations of the superego, and with the superego, it develops and is fully crystallized by the time the person has hopefully come out of their Oedipus complex, having experienced identification with the mother, identification with the father, having introjected these figures and moved towards the early signs of an identity of their own. Now, again, what seems paradoxical is that people who have a very strong superego and therefore likely to have a very demanding ego ideal, are also tend to be easily guilty, easily shamed, often are, not always, but often are awkward in social interactions, come across a little shy, and consciously at least tend to devalue themselves. They undervalue their worth. And they would, once you have their trust, they will be quite open about that. And yet, at the very same time, you can sense that these same people tend to unconsciously, as a compensation, overvalue themselves, and that the inhibition of that overvaluation at a more conscious level is due to their feeling guilty about that or shameful about that, and yet that very high and demanding, ambitious ego ideal, which is often seen in the fact that these people tend to have very ambitious projects, in which case you'd be vindicated for asking, but how do you expect to achieve these projects if you otherwise consider yourself so unworthy? There's something that doesn't add up. This is a not very uncommon trajectory for people who early in life feel misunderstood and devalued, because they start thinking that there's something that they're not doing well and that they need to correct for. And usually the correcting is in getting really good at something, and when that something is so ambitious that it becomes unachievable, it furthers neurosis instead of making it less. So again, for an INFJ in particular, it's all about accepting that you have a hole in your being, and this is part of your structure. It's not something that should be compensated for by a very, very ambitious and all-pervasive ego ideal. It's like the ego ideal is then unconsciously taken to be what will fill the gap. But first of all, this gap can't be filled because it's an ontological gap. And second of all, as long as you keep this illusion that this gap can be filled, you're going to be very neurotically conflicted between your unconsciously really, really ambitious, often unrealistic ego ideal and your present-day, concrete, daily lethargy, inactivity, feeling that you're incapable of even getting near that ideal. So distance between the ego and the ego ideal. The more distance there is, the less self-esteem there is. So calming the ego ideal is key to setting the INFJ in motion, and requires a level of self-acceptance that is part of wisdom. But you can see here that wisdom, self-acceptance, and setting your life in motion by taking on more projects that are realistic for you, and for which, by the fact that you're actually setting them in motion, you're giving them your name, you're ascribing them something of you, you're naming yourself in the process. So that in itself is a way of taking responsibility. It's no longer a matter of just expressing opinions or on this or that topic or taking up this or that persona. It's about really getting involved in projects that you want to see through to the end. But you need the resilience to believe in yourself so that you can actually lead them to a satisfactory conclusion. and you need, in the very first instance, to actually set them in motion by believing they're achievable. And that requires calming the superego, calming the ego ideal. You know, essentially, it's about the INFJ accepting themselves. If they have a big hole in themselves, it does not mean that they're any less lovable. And realizing that you're lovable in yourself is a way of realizing that you're not your achievements, you are not your ego ideal. Okay? And then you can start focusing more on what you would like to do, rather than what you have to do in order to finally be lovable. And that is maturity, in my opinion. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video, guys. Don't forget, I've written 2 books on the INFJ, the latest one being The Infinite Soul, on INFJ life in the modern world, how to find purpose, value, and meaning in the world we often see as hostile. First link below, guys, and another link below is, of course, The Ecstatic Soul, on the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind that you will find online to this day, right? There's a link to my Patreon if you'd like to support as well. I need your support, so I'd appreciate it very much. Okay, guys? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.